Education Policy in British Tropical Africa of 1925 by Dr. Paul Wanyeki. Welcome to our today's lecture. Kenya has a long and rich history of education commissions. In this lecture, we are going to look at the Advisory Committee on Native Education in British Tropical Africa, which was established by the Duke of Devonshire in June 1923. This was at a time when settlers were advocating for minority rule, as it had happened in Rhodesia and South Africa. The report was presented in 1925. Terms of reference: to advise the Secretary of State on any matters of native education in the British Colonies and Protectorates in tropical Africa, which he may from time to time refer to them, and to assist him in advancing the progress of education in those colonies and protectorates. The committee noted that controlling power is responsibility of the colonial government as a trustee for the moral advancement of the native population. It also noted that the government have been taking increased roles in management of African education, which had been largely left out to the missionary societies. Remember, during this time, we had some activities going on during the country that were being led by whites who wanted the rule by minority. We also had some progress in education that were being spearheaded by native Africans and missionaries. Also, we had the Phelps-Stock reports coming out, and therefore this committee that was set out, the Devonshire Committee, they had the privilege of reading through those reports, the stock reports, both in Gold Coast and in East Africa, and it informed this educational policy in British Tropical Africa. Recommendations. The committee made recommendations in 14 broad areas as discussed below. Area number 1, encouragement and control of voluntary educational effort. The recommendations under it were: government welcomes and will encourage all voluntary educational efforts which conforms to the general policy. These voluntary educational efforts included voluntary educational committees, setting up of independent schools that are funded by Africans, provided that the government reserves the policy formulation and school inspection mandate. Under item number 2, which is cooperation. Under cooperation, the following was recommended: cooperation between government and other educational agencies should be promoted in every way. Also proposed formation of advisory board of education, and this board was formed. The board should be supplemented in the provinces by educational committees. This was also a recommendation under cooperation. On the third item, adaptation to native life, the following were recommendations under it. Education should be adapted to the mentality, aptitudes, occupations, and tradition of the various peoples, conserving as far as possible all sound and healthy elements in the fabric of their social life. Promote the advancement of the community as a whole through the improvement of agriculture, the development of native industries, the improvement of health, the training of the people in the management of their own affairs, and the inculcation of true ideals of citizenship and service. Also, under adaptation of native life, a recommendation was made on raising up of capable, trustworthy, public-spirited leaders of the people, belonging to their own race. Raise the standard alike of character and efficiency of the bulk of the people, but provision must also be made for the training of those who are required to fill posts in the administrative and technical service, as well as of those who, as chiefs, will occupy positions of exceptional trust and responsibility. The door of advancement through higher education in Africa must be increasingly opened for those who, by character, ability, and temperament, show themselves fitted to profit by such education. Religion and character training. Recommendations under it. Education must necessarily tend to weaken tribal authority and belief in superstition. Recommendation number 2. The greatest importance must therefore be attached to religious teaching and moral instruction. Recommendation number 3, the formation of habits of industry, of trustworthiness, of manliness, of readiness for social service, and of disciplined cooperation is the foundation of character. Boy Scout and Girl Guide movement was used to achieve this recommendation. Also, still under religion and character training, there was a further recommendation which was to champion residential school for character formation. Recommended the older boys to be entrusted with the responsibility and disciplinary powers as monitors. Now you understand where the habit of caning of students by the prefects emanated from. 6th recommendation, champion recruitment of teachers and board members from Britain. Recommendation number 7, unconscious character formation through imbibing the spirit and atmosphere of the school, and that was through residential school. That's why boarding schools were recommended, so that unconscious character formation through imbibing the spirit and atmosphere of the school can be achieved. Item number 5, the educational service. Recommendation, the rapid development of our African dependencies on the material and economic side demands and warrants a corresponding advance in the expenditure on education. This, simply put, it was recommended that increasingly the colonial government increase expenditure in education. A policy which aims at the improvement of the condition of the people must therefore be a primary concern of government and one of the first charges on its revenue. Outlook of those who control policy and on their capacity and enthusiasm be of importance. Recommended getting experts from Britain. Grant in aid. Recommendation under grant in aid. Establishment of a system of grant in aid to schools which conform to the prescribed regulations and attain the necessary standard. The condition under which grant in aid are given should not be dependent on examination results. This is because most African kids did not perform well in education results, and also very few were registered to take the exams. And the reason why they did not perform very well is very simple. The African educational schools were underfunded, did not have qualified teachers, and also did not receive the same curriculum as the white curriculum, and yet they were sitting for the common exam. Item number 7, study of vernaculars, teaching, and textbooks. Recommendations. The study of the educational use of the vernaculars and preparation of vernacular textbooks with the foundations and illustrations being taken from African life and surroundings be taken into account. Item number 8, native teaching staff. The native teaching staff should be adequate in numbers, in qualifications, and in character, and should include women. Teachers for village schools should, when possible, be selected from peoples belonging to the tribe and district, and who are familiar with its language, traditions, and customs. Item number 9, native teaching staff. Training of teachers should receive primary consideration. Establishment of separate institutions for the training of teachers and by vacation course and teachers conference. Teachers time to time be brought back for further periods of training, say every 5 years. Item number 10, visiting teachers. Encourage visiting teachers from different schools but within the same tribe for sharing of new ideas, methodology, and pedagogy. Item number 11, technical training. Technical industrial training, especially mechanical training with power-driven machinery, can best be given in government workshops. The skilled artisans must have a fair knowledge of English and arithmetic before beginning his apprenticeship. It is on this recommendation that the school in Kabete and the Gene School were opened, since they say that it would be best that mechanical training with power-driven machinery be given by the government and not by missionaries. Instructor for apprentice be appointed to devote his time to training. Item number 12, vocational training. Apprentices and learners in vocations other than industrial should be attached to every government department. For example, medical, agricultural, forestry, veterinary, survey, post office, telegraphy, etc. And should, as a general rule, sign a bond to complete the prescribed course of instruction together, if so required, with a prescribed period of subsequent service. It should be the aim of the educational system to instill into pupils the view that vocational, especially the industrial and manual careers, are no less honorable than the clerical, and of governments to make them at least as attractive, and thus to counteract the tendency to look down on manual labor. 13, education of girls and women. Clever boys, for whom higher education is expedient, must be able to look forward to educated mates. This was an issue that the colonial government did not want to play with. They wanted to approach it with caution because there was heavy-handedness in terms of custom and women education. The boy child was favored, and therefore the colonial administration wanted to recommend recommendations that seems not to go against the African custom. And that's why they are saying that boys who have gotten the advantage of getting higher education or some form of education should endeavor to educate their mates. And even that's why there was a policy that teachers who are being trained in Gene School were being trained as couples. Also, recommendation under education of girls and women, the high rate of infant mortality in Africa and the unhygienic conditions which are widely prevalent make instruction in hygiene and public health in the care of the sick and the treatment of simple diseases, in children welfare and in domestic economy, and the care of the home among the first essentials, and this, wherever possible, should be taught by well-qualified women teachers. Side by side with the extension of elementary education for children, there should be encouragement of educational opportunities for adult women as well as for adult men. Lastly, number 14, organization of school system. It is recommended that the African school system be organized in the following criteria. A, elementary education both for boys and girls, beginning with education of young children. B, secondary or intermediate education, including more than one type of school and several types of curricula. Remember here they are following the first stock recommendation where they are foreseeing a possibility of having education for the masses, education for the leaders, and also vocational education and literary education. C, technical and vocational schools. D, institutions, some of which may hereafter reach university rank. Lastly, adult education for both men and women. Thank you very much for joining this lesson. I welcome you to our next lesson, which will be TVET in Kenya between 1926 and 1963.